Hey guys, what's up? It's Will back once again for another fight card prediction. I'm here for UFC 290, Volkanovski against Rodriguez to unify the UFC Featherweight Championship, as you've got obviously the king of the featherweights, Alexander Volkanovski, taking on the interim champion Yair Rodriguez with Brandon Moreno against Alexandre Pantoja, your co-main event for the UFC Flyweight Championship. Really solid card. A lot of chalky betting lines. Hard to pick out spots, I think, for betting this week. I think there's going to be someone that messes up a big number, and it's just trying to pick out who that could be. I've got myself a couple of bets coming off a slight loss last week, 0.3 units down. I went Strickland straight up, but I also added him to win in rounds 4, 5, or by decision. And he actually got the finish. So you kind of got screwed a little bit by that, but it is what it is. I can take those little losses as long as they're not too heavy. I've had a couple of heavy ones this year and they hurt, but a little minuscule one like that's not bad. Please like, comment, subscribe. Really solid card. Like I said, there's some matchups I'm really looking forward to. If you have anything to say in the comment section there, get in there and I'll try and get to that at the end of the video. But let's get into this, starting off in the lightweight division. Kamuela Kirk against Esteban Ribovics. And before I really looked into this a little bit, I was kind of leaning on the Kamuela Kirk side because when you watch Ribovics, I think he's still kind of fairly green, but he's very exciting and he's very gung-ho, and he comes forward and looks to put it on you, and you can put him in some bad positions and he ultimately will start to kind of find a way to worm his way into a fight. In his UFC debut, took the L to Luik Radzhabov, who lost a couple of weeks ago to Mateusz Rebecki. But he showed a lot of heart in that fight, really made it kind of close, some big power in his hands. And ultimately, he just kind of lost due to the numerous takedowns in that fight. Like I say, and I think he came in fairly short notice for that one, if I'm not mistaken. But here, full camp against the guy coming up from the featherweight division, Kirk. To me, I actually think this is a better division for him, not cutting that weight, not going to be depleted going down there. And I do think he has got past to win this fight here, in my opinion, if he decides to grapple. I think if he grapples and grapples predominantly throughout the fight and get those takedowns and mix it in, then I think that he has got a really good chance of winning. And like I say, earlier on in the week, I thought he might be actually a spot where I wouldn't mind maybe taking a bet on. And then I just watched Ribovics, and I think this fight's going to be kind of close. I can see Kirk maybe getting a couple of takedowns and some ground, some top position and whatnot. I don't think he keeps him there for long parts of the fight. And I think Ribovics comes into the fight like with his striking and just maybe does a little bit more. So, like I say, the line's kind of moved down. It's like plus 165 there, but it's like plus 130. So the money has come in on him. And it looks like he's got a large swell of people on him as well. So, like I say, I think if I was more confident in him fighting to a correct game plan and using that, I'd be more confident in the Kirk side. But I'm going to lean with Ribovics to start off the card here. I think that he can win a very, very kind of close decision. I think some of these rounds are going to be relatively close. But for me, Ribovics is going to be my pick there. Flyweight division, Shannon Ross against Jesus Aguilar. Now, I had a massive bet, one of my biggest bets of the year, actually, probably my biggest bet I've ever had, against Clayton Rodriguez last time out against Shannon Ross. So I was trying not to let that cloud my judgment a little bit coming into this fight, because when I watch the tape on Shannon Ross, I think he's a good, solid pro, but he's prone to taking beatings and he's prone to getting hit in the chin. And I think, like I say, as tough as he is and as game as he is, I think the chin is always going to be holding him back in this division. But, like I say, if he doesn't get hit in the chin, I think that he can win. I think he's the better striker in this fight. I think he can probably mix it up a little bit as well. But the liabilities with him on the feet are... I just don't think he can take a shot. If he takes one shot, then he continues to take numerous shots, can be knocked down numerous times. You watch the Salvador fight, I think it was the Dana White Contender Series one there. I think it was 3 or 4 knockdowns in that fight before getting stopped in the third round. And then the Rodriguez when he just came out there and got blasted. Now, Rodriguez did miss weight in that one there, but still, I just think he's chin's a liability. And when your chin's a liability at flyweight, that's not a good look. Now, when I watch Aguilar, he's not a guy to me that reigns supreme power, but I actually don't think he needs to be. He's one of these guys that very scrappy, will look for submissions. If you give him the opportunity to get his hands around your neck and drop for guillotines and so on, he will take it. But he is very, very small for the division. This number here is not there anymore. He's like plus 125 over here, so that has moved there. So big ballers come in and wreck that line down there. So, like I say, if he was maybe hovering around that number, I think it's actually the side to kind of be on personally. But the more this line's coming down, I think Aguilar's coming a little bit more enticing. I don't think I'm going to be getting on it, honestly, but I think he's the side I'm going to go on. He's only ill, like there in these last 5, to Tsuru Taira, who's also on this card. I'm going to go with Aguilar, but I think it's kind of dog or pass. Even at plus 125, I think if I was saying, right, here's 100, put it on what fighter? I'd rather put it on the guy who I think can probably do it altogether a little bit better. But for me, I just can't trust the chin of Shannon Ross. So I'm going to lean on this Aguilar there. Cameron Simon against Terence Mitchell. Like I say, I've still got my reservations with this Simon kid. I'm not 100% locked in. I've seen some people say that this guy's going to be a great prospect going forward at bantamweight. I don't see it myself, but he is only 8-0 in his career, and he's coming off a couple of wins in the UFC against Stephen Kozlow and that win against Mano Martinez. I tried to fade him against Mano Martinez last time out, and I think there were some spots where Mano was doing well, but I think the indiscretion, so that we're going on that fight with low blows to eye pokes, really kind of stop the flow of the fight and kind of stop Mana and his kind of flow. But Simon was showing some really nice striking. Once he puts it all together, I think he's going to be a pretty good fighter, but he's still very, very green in this division. I think an L is coming up soon. I think he was going to lose to Christian Rodriguez. Honestly, I thought that was going to be the first UFC L time. And this one here, Terence Mitchell, he's a guy that if you've watched the sport long enough, or if you haven't, he was back in 2016, they had, I think it was all the flyweights or champion flyweights from all the other divisions out there and the organizations, I should say. And he was a guy that came in here and got absolutely wrecked by Kai Kara France very, very quickly. And he comes from a scene which is not recognized as being overly hot with talent. But he is coming in here on short notice. He is getting his opportunity. I don't see where he's got many advantages. Maybe if he can get his grappling going. But even then, I think Simon's the more well-rounded fighter. Like I say, he's not beat guys with great records like 4-1, 4-2, 4-0, like 3-3. I mean, last week, like we've seen with Weston Wilson, some of these guys, and now I know they're getting short notice opportunities, these guys just don't, like, they don't belong in the UFC. I still don't think, even though he's got a shiny 15-2 record, I just don't think that he should be in the UFC. So this should be a kind of layup for Cameron Simon. I think he can get a stoppage in this one. So I'm going to take him to get a stoppage win the first 2 rounds there and extend his UFC record to 3-0. And then get a decent matchup. Let's see a little bit more from him in that. Vitor Petrino against Marcin Prachnio. I like Petrino in this one. I liked him in the fight. Like, I bet him, I think, in his fight against Anton Turkalj, the pleasure man, last time out, and he was plus money, but the line is kind of really flew up here. Now, what I liked about that is the guy throws heavy leather. He can mix it with takedowns. I still think he is fairly green for 8-0, but at light heavyweight, you can grow into that division with what he has and the molding of him as a fighter. I think he could be very, very good going forward if he puts all together. It's hard to say whether he is because, like I say, he really goes gung-ho with his big, powerful strikes. He can mix in takedowns. Also, I think he's got to work in his takedown defense because I think with the power that he has, people are going to want to grapple this kid. Turkalj got him down a few times, but he always found a way back to his feet and was always game and throwing heavy, heavy leather. And Prachnio, like I say, much respect to this guy because I thought he was on his way out when he took some L's back in the day. I think it was 3 knockouts, I want to say, in a row. And he's kind of turned himself around to where he's a competent kind of UFC fighter and in some certain matchups can definitely win fights. Khalil Roundtree, that was a big surprise to me. Villanueva should be beating a guy like him. And then the William Knight fight was just atrocious. Where Big Willie just didn't throw anything and Pragnell just had to throw a couple of shots, get back, win the fight through there. I think the chin deficiencies are gonna show their head here. I think that Petrino throws heavy bombs, like real heavy leather, and I think that's going to reoccur here, and he's going to catch Pragnell in this one and knock him out. I've parlayed Vitor up with a guy in the main card there, and I really, really like that play. That's, like I say, you've got to kind of pick your chalk wisely this week. But for me, I think Vitor Petrino is fairly safe. The number's probably a little bit high than it really probably should be, but it is what it is. I feel more confident in him than some of the other guys with heavier numbers as well. So if Vitor Petrino via knockout, I'm going to take a first round knockout. Catch weight, about 130 pounds, 2 guys that are flyweights. We've got Edgar Chairez against Tatsuro Taira. Taira, 13-0 shiny record against a 10-4 record on the Chairez side. Taira, they really want to try and get some showcase for this guy because he seems like a very legit prospect, very young. Let's say 23 years old. 23 years old. He looks very good. He passes the eye test quite well. And I thought that the fight with Clayton was going to be a fun encounter. I still think he will win the fight. Clayton came in super overweight, which he's kind of really getting known for nowadays. And he got rescheduled for this 2 weeks later here in Vegas at International Fight Week. And like I say, Chairez, he comes forward and he is game as they come. Typical Mexican, hard-nosed guy. If you look back into his earlier career, he was a guy that would get submitted, which kind of plays into the wheelhouse of Taira because this grappling control, when he picks his moments to use his grappling and go to the submissions, it is second to none. This might be a matchup where I think that he might want to come out, test his striking, and then I think he'll see how game that someone like Chairez is and look to come in here and really just use that dominant grappling. I think that he will ultimately find a way to maybe get a submission, if not a dominant decision. But like I say, see this fight here, oh my days. If you've not seen this fight and the finishing sequence of that fight, that ref had a death wish for that guy, like his opponent, this guy here, because he had him choked out, moved to an armbar. Chairez was just doing what he's doing, try to finish the fight until the ref pulled him off, and he's snapping at his arm. And that guy, I mean, that ref needed locked up. That was criminal what happened that night. But getting back to this one, I think he'll give a spirited performance, but I think for large spots of this fight, he will lose due to the kind of grappling and the superiority of Tatsuro Taira. And I'm looking forward to seeing Taira going forward because I don't think he's overly far off being a ranked fighter in that flyweight division. I don't think it takes a hell of a lot, even though recently the UFC have been signing really good fighters to the flyweight division. You're going to see them coming up in the next few weeks. We've got Daniel Barres, we've got also Asu Almabayev. There's another one as well whose name is leaving my head right now, but you will see them soon enough. I will mention them when the fight comes around. Ultimately, I'm taking Taira for the win there. Moving on, Jimmy Crute against Alonzo Menifield in a rematch which took place this year down in Australia. And I mean, the betting line was completely different in that fight to what it is now. You're, like you say, it's minus 115. I think it's a little bit higher, like minus 125. But a large part of this week, it was a pick 'em fight. So you're getting a little bit of value on the fact that I think he was plus 230, plus 240 Crute in the first fight. Now, I think he was making his return off bad injury. Looked like a little bit rusty to me. Jimmy Crute, to me, I think is, like you say, he's only 27. He's been around the UFC for a long time. I think he's got a lot of skills, but I don't think he fights to his optimum. I think that he's there to be hit, and obviously Alonzo Menifield is a hitter. Showed that in the fight the first time around. Put him down a couple of times. And then discretions with getting the points taken ultimately made the fight a draw in the rematch here. Good fight, fun fight, exciting fight. I think that Jimmy in that fight got 6 or 7 takedowns. I think they're going to be there all day. I think the chin of Jimmy Crute is going to be there all day for Alonso. I want to feel super confident. Jimmy Crute's going to be my pick. I think if he was just to fight a little bit smarter, don't go gung-ho, don't go rushing in, pick your shots on the feet to then try and mix in to get your takedowns. I think he can get takedowns, and I think he can get top time with that, and ultimately get submission looks, which I think he has got a big advantage in. If he can get it in the center of the cage, not be anywhere near the cage where Alonso can maybe explode up to get back to his feet. And he just has to be careful in the feet, because I think his chin is there to be hit, because Jimmy comes forward just throwing heavy leather for that. Like I say, the fact that Alonso is left Fortis MMA and has aligned himself with Pat Berry's a little bit, I'm like, where did that kind of come from? Now, Pat's obviously going to continue to do well with Alonso's striking, because that's what Pat Barry was known for was decent kickboxing. And Alonso's always had that power. But for me, I'm going to take Jimmy Crute because I think he can get takedowns and I think he's more a submission threat. Just don't go gung-ho at the Alonso and eat some of the heavy leather, because, I mean, he got knocked down twice. All it takes is one to really connect and the fight could be done. But like I say, look at this here, draw. And if he comes out another L here, he could be on his way out of the UFC. So this is a big, big fight for him. I'm going to take Jimmy Crute. I'm going to take him via submission, actually, in rounds 2 and 3. I think that he fights a little bit smarter and finds his submission there. This is a good fight. Yasmin Jauregui against Denise Gomes in the strawweight division. The undefeated 10-0 Yasmin Jauregui against the 7-2 Denise Gomes, who's coming off a really impressive win against Bruna Brazil. Bruna was doing okay, fighting at distance, never really had much output, but Denise was really finding her way into the fight and was landing numerous strikes and big power strikes, and eventually got there to where she knocked out with a right hook, and she's jumping in here 2 months later against a girl. I think this girl's a really solid prospect at 24 years old. She looks amazing. If you've seen some pictures out there of her, she looks like she's really putting in the work. But she's coming off that win there with Estela Nunes, where she won the fight, she got the stoppage, but she showed that she can be put down, she can be hurt a little bit. This fight here with Lucindo, great fight. If you've not seen that, go back and watch it. All action ladies fight where they went at it. It was just probably fight of the night if Onama and Nate Landwehr weren't on the same card. Ultimately, I think that Denise has to land like a big shot, like to really compromise Jauregui. I think Jauregui is going to be more active with her strikes. I think she's going to throw more. I think she's going to land more. I think she can mix up a little bit more as well. So for me, I like the kind of young prospect in Yasmin Jauregui here. Both girls are fairly young, like 23 and 24 years old. But I like what I see from Yasmin. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing where she goes in that strawweight division, because she looks like the kind of real deal that she can move into the top side of that rank, the rankings there. So I'm going to take, like I say, she's minus 400. So like I say, you're taking a big heavy favourite. I'm going to take her there. Della Maddalena against Josiah Harrell. This is the guy who's coming, like I say, coming in very short notice, a couple of days' notice after Sean Brady pulled out. Now, that Sean Brady fight I was invested in and actually had money down on Sean Brady at plus 150. I thought the matchup was there for where he could use his grappling. But then I could see why a lot of people were going to jump on Jack Della Maddalena when he's minus 110, because you see what you get from Jack Della Maddalena, a really solid fighter. Look at that nose, by the way, plastered on the side of his face. That's wild. 14-2 record, has looked fantastic ever since the Dana White Contender Series. The only when watching fights on him, this is where I thought Sean Brady could have an opportunity to really do well in that fight, was because he's predominantly a grappler, a really good submission grappler, get the fight to the ground and use that. And I thought he was going to do that. But like I say, we will never know unless they get rematched. Since then, Pete Rodriguez was only a couple of fights in his career. Amiv, solid performance against a gritty vet. Danny Roberts, another gritty vet, but had chin problems and just really ate that big shot from Maddalena. And Randy Brown, a beautiful submission, showing he's got more arcs to his game than just the striking. His striking is amazing, by the way. He picks his shots so well, very accurate. just picks the shots right, like I say. But he is like a massive favourite here against Josiah Harrell. I think he's predominantly a 155er. Got some good wrestling. So he might come out here. You never know. He might land a takedown if he explodes into that. But eventually, Jack's going to work his way into the fight if he's ever down in any part of the fight. This kid probably deserves his opportunity to be on the Dana White Contender Series. I'm not sure if he was going to be on that, but with a 7-0 record, you would have thought he would have been in the looking at least to get an opportunity fight. But like I say, he's got his opportunity to come in here, move up a division against a top 10 guy. Big opportunity if he wins. I don't think he will. I think he's going to get hurt at some point and knocked out. So Jack Della Maddalena to continue his win streak in the UFC. The retirement fight in the 170-pound division for Robbie Lawler. An absolute great. I want to thank him because I was there that night. He was against Roddy McDonald. I was in Vegas, and I don't think I've ever seen a fight like that. It was wild. And the crowd were just so into that fight, and that card and main card as a whole was just enthralling, to say the least. But now he's coming up here. He was 42, just recently turned 41 a few months ago. Former UFC champion. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done, with some of the fights he's given, some of the moments across the UFC in Strikeforce. Early UFC days. This guy's been around for years. Like I say, I've watched so many fights of this guy when I was in my teens, 20 years ago. It wouldn't be far off that, actually. So, yeah, I've watched this guy for so long. I really want him to win this fight, but when you watch him recently, you can see that he's definitely slowed down. He's took a step back. He's a lot more hittable. I think he's a bit more easier to read. Someone like Niko Price, who is very hittable himself. Recently, I've started to like some of the tendencies that he's got better at, because he was always a guy that kind of relied on his power to really hurt you, but he's a little bit more different now, where he will throw more output, pick his shots, not all be power shots. But like I say, he's 33. He's had a lot of wear and tear in his career, coming off that L to Phil Rowe there, and before that a win over Alex Oliveira, who's just kind of taken fights left, right, and centre recently, all over the world. So ultimately, I really want to pick Robbie Lawler, just because it's Robbie Lawler, and I'd love to see him go out and win. But ultimately, I think that he's going to be there to be hit. I think. What's the other fight that I looked into? Was it the Cerrone fight? The Cerrone fight, where he was showing kind of mad respect. I thought he could have won that fight if he really just didn't kind of give the respect to Cerrone like some people do. But ultimately, I'm going to have to pick Niko Price, another kind of hefty favourite here. But I really want to go the other side with Robbie Lawler. But I think I'm trying to go with that, with the wee noggin, the wee peanut in the brain there, and hopefully that Niko wins. But I want Robbie to kind of finish off and flourish in the UFC with the last one there. Main card. Nickal is back. Mine is 2,500. Massive favourite. Undefeated, obviously, 4-0. Coming in here against, it was supposed to be Tresean Gore. Now it's Valentin Woodburn, who was going to be in the Dana White Contender Series and got the opportunity to come in here. Watched his interview, said he was like 205 pounds out. So hopefully he cuts that weight and he's going to be okay and not have any kind of money taken off him for missing weight or whatnot. 7-0 undefeated guy, so confidence will be super high. But like I say, he's fought numerous guys with lots of losses on their record. Not super great fighters that he's been fighting, but that's sometimes the way you have to take it when you go through the regionals, whatever. I've kind of ended up watching, like I say, I said, I think, to a friend of mine, it's like, I'm not going to really watch Bo Nickal until I really get him in there against a guy that I think can give him any type of problems. I don't think Tresean was really going to give him all too many problems, even though it is a step up from what he faced against Jamie Pickett, in my opinion. But like I said, watching some of this guy's wrestling video, he was just different to a lot of wrestlers that you watch. Like he would pin guys, he would stop guys. I think that was what we're saying into. But the guy is obviously an uber talent, but he is very young. He's 4-0. And in MMA, things happen where you can get hit with something and be knocked out, or attempt a takedown. You can spike your head in the floor, whatever it might be. Like I say, Val Woodburn, he'll get his opportunity obviously being the UFC here, and he'll come in and he'll get fights again. But Bo Nickal should roll here. I'm not going to waste too much time in that. I think he gets it done in the first round via submission. So yeah. Dan Hooker against Jalin Turner. I've kind of been wrong a lot of times on Jalin Turner, but I think I genuinely thought, going back many years ago, when round about the Kulabau fight, I did not think he would. When was the Kulabau fight? Must have been 3-4 years ago. I honestly didn't think he would be around the UFC. I wasn't sure about his chin. I wasn't sure about the skills. He was obviously talented in the way that he's got those big limbs, can strike well, can use his range well, which I think over the last few years he's really moved into. His takedown defense, I think, has definitely gotten better from the early fights with like Frivola, where he was getting taken down and really kind of held down a little bit. And you've seen the last fight. I mean, he's coming off an L to Mateus Gamrot. I thought he fought a really good fight there, because Gamrot is really known for his takedowns and his kind of top position, but he worked his way back to his feet. Like, his striking is really pinpoint and really come along. I think I heard him say that he's been out in Abu Dhabi. He's been training with Hamza. So that's only going to help with your grappling. But I don't think you're going to get someone like Dan Hooker, who's a guy that's not necessarily going to come in there and go for numerous takedowns. He's a guy that's going to be in the kind of shorter. He's usually the guy that's a bit bigger, 6'1", against these shorter guys. He's going to be at a disadvantage here. Reach-wise, it's the same, but he's the bigger guy. So Dan's took a lot of damage in some fights. I mean, you talk about the Barboza one, which I think I cashed a Barboza ticket there. It's like -125. The Arnold Allen fight, I think that his chin's not all the way gone, but if you were to rush this guy, throw some heavy bombs, he will come back at you, and you can get him there. This fight here was the easiest money, I think, of 2022. How he was that low, I can't remember the number. I think it was like -138. For me, at least, the easiest money ever, and he only really had to watch out for a kind of leg lock, heel hook, and ultimately just won that fight. But like I said, I think he is on the tail end. Like, his L's are not bad L's whatsoever. That one there, you get hit with a clean shot, knocked out. So the one shot, he can be one pot shot away and be knocked out. I think that I think he could mix it up and get maybe an odd takedown. I just don't think he can do it like for the whole entire fight. So ultimately, I'm going to take Jalin Turner to rebound, get himself back in the win column, and I think he will get himself a better opponent, a ranked opponent moving into the later part of this year. But yeah, Jalin Turner was my pick there. This is a fight I'm really looking forward to, simply because Dricus brings it every time, and this guy is one of my favourite fighters on the roster and has been for 10 plus years. Probably close to that, I would reckon, ever since he kind of was down in the welterweight division. And I've had some people that are trying to fade him this week that have come to me say, do you think Dricus has got a shot? And like I say, he's very game, but I think this guy is elite, like super elite. I don't think anybody in that division beats him outside of Israel. And I think if they were to rematch, I think that Rob could give Izzy problems still. I really do. I think he can beat him. But it's not a fight you really want to see, considering that Israel is 2-0 over him, knocked him out violently in the first fight. And then the second fight, Rob was taking rounds off him. I think that he could easily win a decision against Izzy if he was to get the right game plan. It was the same last year. I had people, when I was over in Paris, that they thought Vettori had a chance. And I thought he put on an unreal performance. He shows everything cool, clean striking, great footwork, great movement, just great fight IQ, doesn't put himself at risk. But he's going to have a guy in Duplessis who's going to come forward and he's going to look to like put it on him. And he's a big, burly dude for that division. Seen a lot of disrespect for him this week. But I just think he's in trouble in this fight. I'm picking him. I bet him when he was minus 350. I don't like usually betting that number so high, but I still think there's meat on the bone at that, personally, for me. Just by how good this guy is. And I listened to his interview, and he's taken Dricus so serious for this fight, which he should do. But I think he's the better striker. I think as long as he avoids the power shots, because Dricus has shown in the past that he can land one shot and put you out. He can really bring it to you, and the volume that he has can really hurt you. I keep hearing people say that this thing about his nose being fixed. Like I say, it doesn't matter with that, because it only takes a couple of shots for that thing, or one shot for that thing to go bad again. I was very surprised when I had this matchup put together, for the simple reason there's the whole African thing with Israel Adesanya, which if you were to give him a fight outside, maybe with I don't know, Strickland or whoever else, he might work himself into a title shot, and it's a fight, fresh meat for Izzy. I think Izzy would smash him to bits, but still, I think Robert is one of the most elite guys in the UFC, and he has been for years, and is one of my kind of favorite guys to watch fight, just for his fight IQ and how well he is, how well put together he is a fighter. I think that Robert Whittaker is going to knock Dricus out with a head kick. I think he's got one of the best head kicks in the UFC. So I think that Dricus is going to come out there and just look to come at him. And he could put Rob initially in some tough spots early on, but I think eventually he's going to counter him with something and knock him out. So head kick knockout for me for Robert Whittaker. I'm going to go late round 2 TKO victory for Robert Whittaker there. Co-main event. Ooh, best fight in the card for me. Brandon Moreno against Alexandre Pantoja 3, with Pantoja up to zip in this one. But this is going way back to 2016. That tough show that I mentioned earlier on with Terence Mitchell. Yeah, great fight. And it's a completely different fight when you look at, like I say, they last fought 5 years ago. And I bet Pantoja I think it was minus 125. And I thought he whooped Moreno's ass badly. But Moreno never gave up. Like that true Mexican warrior spirit. Like took a jab, I think it was in the second round, that really put him in the back foot. Like really, like he showed discomfort in that strike on his nose, got busted up, but kept coming forward, but ultimately was just getting beat up by the jab. I think it was the left jab with the right hook that Pantoja was falling it with, and the leg kicks were showing up, and he was showing his grappling with scrambles in there. What I like about Pantoja, and like I say, another guy, I'm a massive fan of this guy. I actually look back at his records in the UFC's fights. I've bet on this guy a lot and profited a lot. I think I've only lost the one bet on him, but overall as a fighter, I think he's one of the most dangerous guys in the flyweight division, because his striking is so unreal. His grappling is serious. If he gets your back, you're in deep shit. And he's a guy that does not stop. Now, this is over 5 rounds. He has not had, I don't think he's had a main event in the UFC. So he's not had many scheduled 5-round fights, if any. Maybe back in the day when he was a champion in other promotions. So I think that really leans into the side of Brandon Moreno. But I think Pantoja, if he was to really kind of pace himself, which he's not really known for, I think that across the entirety of this fight, he could have a lot of moments where he is winning rounds decisively. But I think you've got to throw out, I know he's 2-0, so you can't really dismiss that. But in that 5 years that Moreno, the last fought, Moreno got cut from the UFC, came back, and it's established himself as a couple of times champion of the world, faced the best guys. He's faced Figgy like 4 times and come out the other side looking like the best flyweight that we have right now. But I still think he can be picked apart. But his definition of his body is completely different. I think his striking's got a lot better. I've seen that he's been working his jiu-jitsu with a very, very well-known guy, and I've completely forgot his name. I think it was Mikey something, but I forgot. And he is leveled up substantially, where now he is, 29, 30? He is in his prime right now, where Pantoja, he might have been in his prime when they first fought, or they fought second time in Chile. But in saying that, look at the wins he's got. Manel Cap, great win. Brandon Royval, great win. And that was a fight there that Royval was actually, I thought, fighting very well, was landing strikes, but ultimately, this guy is a killer. He's an absolute killer. And then Alex Perez got him out there in 90 seconds, got the back, got the choke, was over. I'm picking Alexandre Pantoja. I'm not going to jump off the kind of horse now. And at plus 170, I know this guy's leveled up. I think that line should be a lot lower now. Should he be an underdog? Maybe. But if you're giving me this number, I'm on that number, so I'm going to go with it. But I'm not disrespecting Moreno because he is leveled up and he's one of the nicest guy. I seen him in Paris last year. Never got a picture, which kind of annoyed me a little bit. But he was busy. I didn't really want to get in his way. Just a really, really good, fun fighter. I was watching that Kai Kara France fight there. He was taking some shots on that, so he is defensively, I think he is there to be hit, and I think someone like Pantoja can get him and can hurt him. But I am worried about his gas tank because I think Moreno could maybe fight at a slower pace, slow it down a little bit, maybe lose a round or two, but ultimately might come on late and kind of win a decision, maybe even a stoppage. So if I'm picking Pantoja, I think the finishing capability is more on his side, and I'm going to pick him via stoppage. You're probably going to go at decision, but I'm going to pick him via submission, round number 3. It's going to be my pick there. I just think I'm just, this number here, it's like, I don't know why it's that high. So I bet 2 units, plus 170, Alexandre Pantoja for the win there for me and become the UFC Flyweight champion. And the main event of the night, we've got Alexander Volkanovski against Yair Rodriguez, 25-2, coming off an L to Islam Makhachev, which I thought he might have deserved the nod in that one. Against interim champ here, 15-3. Yair Rodriguez coming off a win over Josh Emmett, in which he really put it to Josh in that fight. And I'm seeing, like I say, you have to. I know I've picked a lot of favourites in this one. To me, it looks like a favourite heavy card. I have to lean on the side of Alexander Volkanovski, but I think people are writing off Yair a little bit too easily because the guy is so dangerous across many aspects. But when you look at him, you could see a spot here where he gets picked apart by someone like Volkanovski because of how well of a fighter he is in every facet. With his shot selection, with how he gets into how close he can get in, he can rip to the body, he can get takedowns, he can dismantle you with leg kicks, he can get takedowns and be predominantly in good positions there where he's beating you up. His ground and pound is unbelievable. And like I say, you watch the fights with Yair, I mean, the Jeremy Stevens one and this one here, he was kind of getting hit up a little bit. The Max Holloway fight, I thought he gave Max a really good go of himself, but ultimately was getting taken down by Max there and was getting hit up. The Brian, you could go back to the Korean Zombie one. He was on his way to losing that fight, then caught that Hail Mary elbow. Then that fight there, that was a shoulder injury in the first round, so he can't take too much away. But he looked great there, got the submission, so showing that he's rounding out his game a little bit. Where he could maybe give someone like Volkanovski problems is, I think, the biggest thing in his arsenal for this fight is going to be his kicks. That's where I think he could hurt Volkanovski, but maybe attacking the body or catching him with something up top there. And maybe Volkanovski is coming back a little bit too quick. I mean, it's 4 months. He's probably been in camp for 8 weeks. So he never had all that much time off to really decompress after that loss to Islam, in which he gave an unreal account of himself. Where I think he wins, I think he gets in close and he busts up Yair and gets takedowns as well, and just beats him up. I think his ground and pound's like heavy ground and pound. I would like to see. Would I like to see a new champion? Maybe not. But I think Volk, wherever he goes, if he stays at this division, he's got guys coming up, maybe some fresh faces that he wants to stick around for. I'm going to pick Volkanovski via decision. But yeah, really good fight. I think Yair's going to really give him a good encounter, but just ultimately I think that Volkanovski is just too good for him. So Volk for the win there. Okay, I'm going to go in and say hello to some of the guys in the chat there. There'll only be a couple of ones in there, but I'll say hello. Dick's inside. I've heard your name a lot this week. I seen that you were in the Clint's chat in the week. I was actually listening to him. I was at work this morning. So yeah, I heard you're going to be live with my boy Dan Levy for the London card. Possibly. Looking forward to it. I appreciate that. Thanks for the content, KB86. Long time fan. I appreciate it. Will, I need your help. I need you to help me steal Veronica Macedo from Dan Hardy. Me too. Me too. She's a firecracker. I've seen her. I've met her a couple of times. She's a really nice girl. So yeah. Thanks for the Luana Carolina bet. Nice performance and great odds. Appreciate that, Marcus. I rewatched the Denise Gomes fight, but need to watch the Mexican another time. Yeah, you should. She puts on good fights. Interest in International Fight Week. 2 last-minute replacements. Yeah, imagine that parlay. Thanks for the content from Kieran. I thought it was Valentin Moldovsky. I like the tarantula here. Stare downs will be fun. Well, if Hooker wins, you bleach your hair blonde like Hooker Charles Oliveira. Dude, if I was to do that, my hair is already thinning out. So I'm probably going to be bald gang soon, and that's not a great experience. Putting bleach in the hair might not kind of help that. So, yeah, I'm rolling with Dricus. Ooh, interesting. Remember the name. I'll remember that. I'll give you a shout out next week if that happens. Robert the Reaper. Don't forget DDP can actually breathe now. Yeah, that's true. DDP, the future president of UFC Africa. T-Mobile Arena is going to be crazy. American top team represent. I thought Makhachev. I actually think, yeah, that's true. Mentioning Volkanovski, I thought Makhachev actually did look good as well. I thought he put it together. I just thought it was a very high level fight. Very high level fight. Well, what's that? You still with that shorty with the big arms? Yeah, I'm still with that. I don't think he's with her anymore. I remember he was clapping her yams like crazy. Oh, I appreciate that. You guys are funny, right? And Hood Life there. Would you give it to Macy Barber? I'm a happily taken man, but I probably would. Absolutely, I'm not going to say no. But guys, I appreciate you for sticking around for the last 45 minutes, however long it's been. Until next week, enjoy UFC International Fight Week. Peace, take care, enjoy the fights when they come around this week.